Hey, it's Danny from ProjectManaverse.com. Are you applying for project manager jobs? If so, this is the video for you. Today, I will be going through typical project manager questions in a typical project manager job interview. So let's jump straight in. So first of all, let's talk about the structure of a project manager interview. It's usually done in three parts. So the first part is a general getting to know you stage, where they just ask you general questions about yourself and what you've done before and your previous experience. And the second part is generally the competency-based questions. So this is where they delve into try and figure out how much you know about project management, and they'll ask you jobs about project management skills and your previous experience of projects and what projects you've delivered, and they'll try and tease out those key skills and competencies they're looking for as a project manager. And then part three is usually very short. That's where they hand it over to you to ask questions, and you can make that as long as you like, but I recommend making it quite short, but make sure you have a few questions lined up. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's start with section one, when they ask you the general questions. So first of all, they might just want to know a bit about your career path and your career progression. So just make sure you've got an answer ready to articulate that clearly. So what have you done in the past? What jobs have you had previously? What have you been doing in your previous role? And of course, the more you can bring out project manager examples, the better. So just make sure you have something prepared and you're not trying to think on your feet, because they probably will ask you that. Now, the next question they'll ask, which is quite common, is why do you want to be a project manager? And this is really, really important, because it makes sure, well, it makes them understand, it gives them confidence that you do genuinely want to be a project manager, and you're not just trying to get any old job and you're just applying for the first job that came up. So make sure you can really clearly say why you want to be a project manager. And if you do truly want to be a project manager, then this should be no trouble for you. I actually looked through my old interview notes from many years ago, one of my first project manager job interviews, and actually jotted down, or actually brought out the actual notes I had from that interview, and I picked out my bullet points in terms of why I wanted to be a project manager. So you can use these if you want to. I'll share them with you. Number one, I said I like being responsible for delivering something that will impact a lot of people. So the way I phrased it was I like the impact the project manager role has. I like jobs that are impactful, because you could be managing a software project that's going to be, let's say it's creating a mobile app that could go out to thousands or millions of customers. So you are spearheading a project that's going to impact millions of customers. So that's quite exciting. You get to spearhead a project that's going to impact a lot of people. I also said I like being part of a team and the camaraderie that it brings. So being a project manager, you're always speaking to your team every day. You go through a lot together, ups and downs, and the projects can go on for a year, and you really do form a bond with your team. So that's another good reason why the project manager role is appealing. Next, I said I like to leave my comfort zone and grow from difficult challenges. Projects are always stretching and difficult. If you're given a difficult one, it forces you to grow, forces you to get outside of your comfort zone, develop new skills, build confidence. So that's another good reason. I said I like to be in charge of a team and like to be in charge of my time. So I like to be responsible for the resources. I don't like to be told what to do every day. I like to be deciding what the priorities are for the team and myself, and in control of my own time and my own resources. And the last thing I said was it's not a boring job, because by definition, every project is unique, and every day in the project manager role is different. It's not like you're doing the same thing every day. Of course, you have meetings and meetings every day, but the issues you face are slightly different. The challenges you face are slightly different, and the things that you're building and delivering are always slightly different as well. So it's not a boring role, it's quite varied. So so make sure you have just an answer ready in terms of why you want to be a project manager, and be passionate when you're speaking about it. Sound excited about the role. That's a really key thing, because especially if you're lacking in experience, a lot of times passion will win over experience, because experienced project managers can get tired of it, and they're a bit despondent and a bit tired of it, and because of that they don't bring the energy and the drive to the role anymore. But if you're new to it and you're really keen and you want to get involved, people appreciate that, and they know that goes a long way. So make sure you come across very passionately in your interview. Okay, next we'll go on to the next section of the interview, and this is a competency-based question. So again, they're trying to figure out how much you know about project management. if you have the right skills for project management, do you have the right competencies for project management, and are you right for the role? So there's only a handful of really core competencies that you need to be a good project manager. So you can have a vast array of skills as a project manager, but there's a core handful that you really do need to be able to do the job well. And the questions I'm going to give you in terms of examples will cover those competencies. And I won't spend too long on each one, but I'll give you a little bit of an answer for each one. So first of all is they want you to explain how a project works, and they typically ask that by saying, do you know or can you explain what the project life cycle is? And that's basically the duration of the project from beginning to end. What phases are there in the project? And the typical structure or life cycle most industries use is the define stage or the design stage, then the build stage, then the test phase, then the implementation phase where you implement your product, and then like the benefits and the project closure phase. Those are the key 5 phases of the project. So make sure you know those phases and you can rattle them off the top of your head so you sound like you know what you're talking about. Okay, next question. Can you give an example of managing a project from beginning to end? This is really important, this question. They'll almost certainly answer it. And even if they don't, you want to make sure you can sneak it in there in one of your answers and demonstrate that you have done that. So right from the start, from project mobilization to getting the team together, from doing the design, the testing phase, the build phase, all those phases I said, to actually delivering the project, getting it done, and then closing it down, the entire thing. And if you're brand new to project management, you've never had a project management role before, you can use examples from everyday life. You can talk about a DIY project, or you can talk about a theatre show you put together, or some kind of performance you organized, or anything, or a club you ran, anything where you've organized something and there was a clear goal, something that you had to do, there was a clear outcome, and there was a duration of time. So it wasn't a enduring thing that was going to last forever. There was a start and an end to it. You had to do something, you had to build something, deliver something, or put on the performance, and there was a definite end to it. Building a house, for example, that kind of thing, a DIY project. Wedding planning is a great one. So planning a wedding, you can use that as an example of project management. So make sure you've got an answer ready. If you haven't got any project management experience in the real world, in the workplace, then take something from your personal life. Okay, next is give an example where you have worked with a variety of stakeholders to achieve an outcome. Now, stakeholder management is a big part of project management. So they'll give you a question that will try and tease it out in some shape or form. So you want to just make sure you understand that on a project, you'll work with a variety of stakeholders, different levels of seniority, different types of people in terms of they might be engineers or business people or customers or third parties, and they all have the different personalities, they all have their different interests, and they all have their different take on the project. So just make sure you can clearly articulate that and give some examples. Next is how to give an example of managing risks and issues, or how would you manage risks and issues? Again, risks and issues management is a big part of project management. A couple of tips for you. I would express that you understand how important it is to proactively manage the risks and issues, and really manage them, not just keep a log of them like a tick box exercise, but actually try your best to mitigate the risk, try and get rid of them if you had to. And if you had to work with your team, when you said to your team, right, we have to do everything we can to try and stop this risk from happening, something that could go wrong, that's a risk, how would we do it? And you really brainstorm ideas and you get an action plan and you follow up with the action plan and you're really aggressive with it, and you're like a dog with a bone on those actions. And that's really proactive risk management, not just keeping a log and forgetting about it to cover your own arse. It's proper risks and issues management. Make sure you can express that clearly. Okay, next is an example of managing a project budget. So make sure you again explain an example where you've had to manage the costs of a project. So the resources that the team members, you're managing their monthly forecast and their actual costs, and how have you done that? How have they booked their time to the project? How have you tracked it? And what have you done if you've gone over budget or you're going under budget and you're not staying on forecast? Make sure you can express that and clearly talk about that. Okay, next is overcoming a difficult challenge or situation. So they want to know that you can you can be strong in the face of challenges, because projects will have lots of challenges all the way through, and that you have the resilience and the resourcefulness to overcome those challenges, and you can stick with it and smash through them. So make sure you've got clear examples of where that's happened, clearly articulate the actual issue or the challenge or the problem, and talk about how you were strong and you weren't put off by it and you stuck with it and you overcame it, and what was the learning from that. Okay, I'm speeding up because I'm running out of time, but next is resolving conflict. Give an example of resolving a conflict or mediating a conflict or trying to get the outcome you wanted despite there being a conflict. But again, conflict management comes up in project management. In the real world, there's not much you can really do about conflict. You can't make people friends and make people like each other if there's big conflicts, especially if they're very senior and they've been around a long time and there's egos involved. In the real world, that just doesn't happen. You can't sit them down and go, right guys, let's talk about this conflict. What's your thoughts? It doesn't happen in the real world. You just have to do your best to still get them talking in a amicable way if you can and get the outcome you want. So make sure you can articulate that. Okay, examples of influencing a stakeholder. This is a big one because on projects you have to influence stakeholders, either to get them to agree to something or get them to do something, or that's pretty much it, either to agree something or to do something. Those are the big ones. So make sure you give an example of that. So that's the competency section of the interview. So I want to end with, the last part is your questions. So you can ask anything you want to, but I'm going to give you three example questions. Number one is, what project will I be working on? If they know that, that's great. You can ask about what that first project is going to be. And number two, a follow up to that is the team ready? Have they assembled a team for that project, or will you get to put it together? And then the question I like to ask is, what key challenges are you facing in your team right now? Because it shows you're interested and you can respond to what they say in terms of what their challenges are. And sometimes it puts them on the back foot a bit and they have to think, okay, what are our key challenges at the moment? And yeah, it's a good way to just get a conversation going in terms of what they do every day and the challenges they're facing, and maybe potentially what you can do to help them out with it. Okay, some general tips very quickly before I close. When you are giving your answers, use the STAR-L model, and STAR-L is an acronym. So you've got STARL. S is the situation. So first of all, set the background. What's the situation? What's the context? T is the task. What was the thing that you had to do? What was your mission? What was your objective? A is the action you took. So what did you actually do to do that task or to achieve that task? R is a result. What was the outcome? Was it a success? Was it a failure? And then L is the learning. So through all that, what did you learn? And for that learning part, think to yourself, if I had to do that situation again, what would I do differently? That's how I like to answer that learning bit. And you can say that in the example as well. That's tip number one. Tip number two is, feel free to skip questions if you can't think of an answer immediately, and say it in a way, just say, do you mind if we come back to that question? Because while you're going through the other questions, it will pop into your head sometimes and you're unconsciously thinking about the answer, or you can try and do that multitask if you want to. But it's best not to just stutter and be put on the spot completely. If an answer doesn't pop in your head right at that moment, or just say, do you mind if we just come back to that question? You can revisit it later. Next is, being confident is better than being quiet. So just answer with confidence. So even if you don't have an example or you can't think of the right answer, just say something and say it confidently. And remember that the goal of the interview is to see if you're going to be a good fit for the role. The goal of the interview is not to see if you can answer their prepared questions perfectly. And remember that they want to just find out if you're going to be good for the role. So you can achieve that in various ways. It doesn't have to be answering those questions. So as long as you give an answer, even if it doesn't fit their question exactly, if you've prepared a really good answer that articulates how that demonstrates that you've got the key skills of a project manager, then just use that and try and fit it as best you can to that question. But it doesn't have to be exact. Even if you don't answer that question exactly, you're still demonstrating that you've done a project, you know what the skills are, and you've got the capability. So remember that, okay? Next is, when you prepare your examples, I recommend preparing maybe 3 or 4 examples of different situations or projects, beginning to end projects or tasks or little pieces of work that you've done, and try and prepare those answers so you're weaving in all those key competencies of a project manager. So no matter what no matter what they ask you, you've always got a question ready that you can use for almost any competency, because you've already prepared it and you can spend a bit more time on that particular competency when you're going through it. So just get about 4 examples pre-prepared, get really good answers, and weave into those answers all the competencies of the project manager, all the key ones. And that way you're not going to be put on the back foot. If they ask a question, you have something ready and prepared to give a slick answer. Okay, the last one is make sure you say what you did. Don't talk about we did this and we did that, or the team did this. What did you physically do? You called that person, you had the conversation, you facilitated the meeting to get the outcome, you chased up the actions, you were persistent with the follow-up of the actions and getting them closed down. You called that senior stakeholder, had a conversation and persuaded them to agree to the extra budget. Whatever it was, make sure you said what you did. Okay, and that's pretty much it. The last one the last one I have on here is be specific. So I think that's pretty much, I just covered that. So get in your answers, say exactly what you did, not a general kind of, yeah, we did this, we worked hard and it was a good outcome. Just be specific in the key steps that you did to make it happen. And put a bit of storytelling into it if you can, in terms of the struggles you were feeling internally, and you thought there was no hope, and make it a bit more dramatic if you can. Okay, I'm way over time there, so I'm going to wrap up the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and until tomorrow, please take care.